Good everyone, it's Steve from Sneaker Tech Talk, back with another video today. For today's video, we will be taking a look at the Puma MB.04 LaMelo Ball's fourth signature shoe. So without further ado, let's take a look at them. Alright, so first things first, before we get into the shoe's performance, I do want to mention the aesthetics of his shoe from the first, the second, third, and now the fourth have really not changed. It's the same overall shape that they are giving us. They're just kind of changing the textiles and the different kind of designs on the upper, but the overall shape is the same. And I do want to mention that it would be nice to see something a little bit different from Puma. That's not to say this is not a good shoe. I don't know. You guys tell me, are all of his signature shoes just kind of in line with one another and not changing enough to keep interest for you to go out and buy his newest shoe? But as always, let's get into the traction. You do have this multi-directional traction pattern here at the bottom of the shoe. Now, I only spent around 8 hours on court with this. You do kind of have this modified herringbone in the forefoot and then kind of this flame pattern at the back. Now, there is really next to no squeak with this traction pattern on court, but it performs awesome. On all of my movements, even on dirty floors, I wasn't wiping at all. This is a solid rubber outsole, and it just sticks to the floor awesome. One thing I would mention is the durability right here on the medial side is kind of wearing away pretty quickly. The grooves are pretty shallow and pretty tightly knit together, so I don't think I would bring these outdoors. But while this traction does last, it will perform really good for you. But so far from my experience with around 8 or 9 hours of use of the MB.04s on court, the traction has been pretty good. And that's why it's gonna score a pretty solid 9 out of 10. Now keep this in mind, all of his shoes thus far for the most part have performed really nice as far as the traction goes, and the MB.04 are no different. As far as the cushioning goes, with this model right here, you are getting a pretty firm EVA or Phylon midsole here on the outside. It does have a little bit of compression. You can kind of see flames, or I don't know what that design is on the midsole, but it does allow for some nice compression. Now, underfoot in the heel and the forefoot, you do have nitro foam, or nitro infused foam kind of pucks under the forefoot and the heel. Those are very soft. They offer great impact protection at the back of the shoe and a pretty close to the floor feeling up front. It's a pretty decent setup, but it's been basically the same setup every year. And that's not to say again that it's not good, but I would like a bit of a variety and just kind of a different offering within his line to kind of change it up a bit. So keep in mind, it is adequate for most playstyles, positions 1 through 5. It will definitely get the job done. And honestly, at the back so far, this is the softest setup from his line as far as impact protection at the back. Some of his other ones have been a little bit more firm, but I do think they have been changing the compound of the nitro foam just a little bit, tweaking it from year to year, and thus far this feels the best underfoot. Just keep in mind, with foam compound cushioning setups, they do wear down over time to the point where it's going to feel really dead underfoot. That hasn't happened yet, but the more you play in them, the more they get beat up and the more they become a little bit dead over time. So do keep that in mind. You do have that EVA wrap and then the nitro foam pucks in the forefoot and the heel. As far as the fit goes on this model right here, I stuck true to size with my size 10.5, and I have a little bit less than a kind of pinky's width at the toe box, a very snug 1-to-1 fit, a very tapered basketball shoe here in the forefoot. Honestly, it was just very snug on foot. It just felt like a straight jacket around my foot. You have a ton of padding at the back heel counter and at the tongue, so it's a very comfortable shoe as far as the fit goes, but we will get into it more with the materials. But it is a very hot shoe. That is one thing I really noticed with this shoe, is it is a very hot basketball shoe. After I was done playing in them, my sock was soaked. As far as the fit goes, you're not really going to have many issues. They are gusseted here at the midfoot, so the tongue's really not going to go anywhere. I'm going to have to give the fit a very nice 9 out of 10. In my opinion, probably his best fitting basketball shoe thus far. The only one thing I would say about the fit is it is a little bit narrow here in the forefoot, so if you are a wide footer, I would probably recommend trying these on in-store before ordering online. As far as the materials go, you know, for $130 or $140 basketball shoe, you kind of get what you get. you're getting a really cheap kind of mesh material at the back, and then all these kind of fuse and textiles running throughout the toe box right here. It's a very cheap setup and it feels very plasticky in hand. In my opinion, with this upper, there's just too much going on in this upper. It kind of looks like a Venom, almost like Carnage shoe with all these lines running throughout. It's really hard to kind of see what's going on. And in my opinion, I don't really care for it. But as far as the materials go, you are kind of getting those mesh materials and all of the overlays on the upper right here. Now, from afar on court, you can definitely tell what these are from a very far distance, just because of the really wild nature of the shoe. But as far as the materials go, they are a very cheap setup. There is some break in time with these materials at the front of the shoe because it just needs to warm up and kind of heat around your foot. You might have to adjust the laces a little bit because once this shoe breaks in, it becomes a little bit loose. You snug up the laces a little bit more and you will be good to go. This is a very cheap setup. I do really like that hornet though at the back of the shoe. I think that's a very nice touch. I did enjoy my time as far as the materials go. It just feels very cheap in hand. And that's why the materials are going to score a decent 7 out of 10. As far as the weight goes for the MB.04, keep in mind this is a mid-top basketball shoe, and coming in for a US size 10.5, they do weigh almost 16 ounces at 15.6 ounces. So all things considered, this isn't overly a lightweight basketball shoe. As far as the support goes on this model, honestly, I had no issues. At the back, you have a very rigid internal heel counter, which extends pretty far all the way down here on the sidewall. Moving your way down from that, you do have this kind of TPU plate right here, which adds to the rigidity of the shoe, but it also wraps up your foot and acts as a guardrail. So on all those hard lateral cuts, this is protecting your foot from spilling over the side of the shoe. The same goes for this upper kind of overlay right here. This fuse material does stiffen up the shoe just a little bit. And then on the medial side, the rubber outsole does wrap up on this side as well. So on any hard lateral cuts, this shoe was great. I wasn't spilling over and having any issues with my foot sliding over the footbed. At the bottom of the shoe, you do have a bottom loaded shank plate, so the torsional rigidity within the shoe is insane. It still has decent forefoot flex, but the overall kind of support system underfoot is awesome. And then they do have a pretty wide and stable base here in the forefoot. So on all of my movements, on all of the plays that I did make within the shoe, I was held down as far as the support goes, and I really can't ask for anything else. It will be interesting to see how the low tops perform, because year over year I have preferred his low tops a little bit more than the mid tops. They're a little bit lighter, a little bit lower cut, and I just prefer the overall kind of fit of his low tops thus far. But honestly, the support features on this shoe are not a slouch at all, and that's why they're going to score a pretty awesome 9 out of 10. So that's going to do it for today's performance review on the Puma MB.04s. Would I recommend this shoe? Honestly, it's pretty much the same as last year. So if you have last year's model, or if you can get it on deep discount, I would prefer last year's model over this one right here. But if you're a huge fan of his or Puma in general, then I guess it's worth it because it's more or less the exact same tech as last year. So if you did like last year's model, I would say go after these. But for me, I would just wait for these to go on sale and then pick them up once they're 30 or 40% off. I think it's a way better buy. It's definitely going to be interesting on how they kind of implement the upper on the low top. This is a pretty decent performing basketball shoe, more or less the same as the 1s, 2s, and 3s. If you like those, you'll definitely like his 4th signature shoe. But as always, thanks for watching today's video. If you guys could like, comment, and subscribe, that would definitely help the channel a ton. And check out my Instagram over at Sneaker Tech Talk, as it is an extension of my YouTube channel with all my pickups, basketball footage, and nostalgia as a whole. As always, thanks for watching today's video, and until next time, peace.